Okay. Oh. We would like to welcome Danney Robinson, who has graciously agreed to talk with us about the history of Bellaire. This project, A Living History of Bellaire, is sponsored by Bellaire Public Library and funded by a grant for Next Level Leadership, University of Michigan. Welcome, Danney. So, when and where were you born?
I was born in Big Beaver Township, Michigan,
Okay.
in 1940,
Okay.
and my father came from Nebraska, but he moved to Michigan. That's where we met my mother, and so all the time that they were married in 32, but he always wanted to be a farm. He was raised at a farm, and so after the Second World War ended, he put our house up for sale, and we came up here, and he looked around, so we moved up here. So I was 5 years old when we moved up here.
Wow. So was he a farmer here then?
Yep, he was a farmer, and of course back then, every family was a farmer. You know, I noticed that you look around the countryside, and every house around, there used to be a barn, there used to be a farm. When I was growing up, it was like that, but it's not that way anymore. Times have changed. But he was also a carpenter.
Oh, okay.
So he worked as when farming wasn't paying off anymore, then he went into the carpenter business again.
So did he like build cabinets and things, or was he work building houses?
Houses. He worked for Apple Construction for years. He started out working when he only had four people working for him.
Wow.
It was him and his brother and his dad, and then they hired my dad, and that's how they started out. He grew quite a bit after that.
So are there any of the houses he built still up that you think?
Oh yeah, oh definitely. Well, my father died and had a heart attack in '63, and at the time they were working on Shanty Creek. And
Okay.
they were building a lodge, and then that's where he had a heart attack. Within a week he was gone.
Wow. So what's your earliest memories of Bellaire? I mean, if you were 5, what do you remember for most?
What do I remember the most? Well, of course, that was in '45, and we lived 3 miles out of town. So, going to school, you were a country kid and city kid. City kids, of course, lived inside the village, so we didn't come into town an awful lot. But it was the one thing I remember is quiet, peaceful little town, and the way the courthouse was built and the location of it. A lot of I call them older people, you know, and when they come to town, they'd park at the courthouse square, and then they would walk to Main Street and do their shopping. That always kind of we had a neighbor that was a couple. Their families had grown and they had quite a few grandchildren. They lived alone, but he was still farming, and he always drove his wife into town on Saturday. He parked the car in the courthouse, and the one thing I really remember, and might be a little strange, but back then there was about three grocery stores in town, and one of them, the name of it slips my mind right now, but it was the old style. It was its sidewalk level, so you walked straight in, and you walked up to the counter and you gave the guy your list, or you told him what you wanted. Now that's where our neighbor always shopped. That was and because my mother would take her to town once in a while, and she always had to go to that store, and he would walk to the shelves, you know, and bring the stuff back until her list was complete. That always, I was only 5 when I first heard that, but that always just stuck in my mind.
Yeah, the country store.
You know, and of course, then there was Davy's Market, which was next door to it, and that was more like what we see today. You
Supermarket.
know.
Yeah. So, so what kind of crops did your dad grow?
Well, pretty typical, like just a small family farm. We had a few cows for milking. We sold our milk to the Mansalona cheese factory.
Oh, okay.
And of course, that was the best cheese around. You ask anybody that remembers that. And then we, of course, we had to raise oats and hay and corn for the livestock. But then we always planted a couple acres of cucumbers and a couple acres of beans. And
So you ate a lot of cucumbers and beans.
well, we sold
Pickles.
them.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah. See, that was a cash crop in the summertime, and of course they had the cucumber. The pickle station was right here in town where you dropped them in.
Okay.
Brought them in, and then they put them in the vats all winter.
Okay, so there was a pickle company here.
No, not necessarily a pickle company. It was a sort of a depot, and where you bring them in and they'd sort them, and then they would process them, put them in the large vats, and then they'd ship them out from there. And then, of course, the beans we used to, it was string beans, and we took them up to the cannery in Central Lake.
Oh, okay.
But almost everybody, you had a few kids and you raised those crops, and that kept things going.
Isn't that amazing? So where did you go to school?
Bellaire, yeah. I started school. In well, it's called Troy now as a kindergartner. We started in August, tail end of August for September, and the school was overcrowded, so they had the kindergarten go to a basement of a Methodist church.
In Troy.
You're right. And the second week we went to school, the church burned down.
Oh no.
So we never went back to school until midterm. Of course, we moved here in November, so when I came up here, I started school right here in Bellaire.
So was there a elementary type or a primary school in the farming area and one in town, or were you all in the same school?
No, it was all there was a lot of country schools around, but they were all shut down in the late 30s, early 40s. Like they were where we lived. There was one about 2 miles up the road, and 8 miles there's another one, and another. There was a scatter all over, but no, everybody in this area went
to one
Bellaire school. But we used to we had a 4-H club, and we used to meet in one of the old school buildings, and that was impressed me because you had to be 10 years old at the time, so I was about 9 years old when I could start to join, and we started going to that old school. And you walked in, and it's just like they walked out and shut the door. There was assignments on the board, and books on the desk. They just
That's
walked
kind of
out.
weird. Yeah. So what did you do for a living then? After you graduated, did you graduate from high school?
Yeah. Yes. My wife and I both graduated from high school in '58.
Okay.
And of course, I went in the Army, and she went to Central Michigan for a year. That's for the first year, and then after I got out of the Army, we started dating when we were juniors. We were in the same class.
Oh.
She moved here. Her dad moved here. He was the superintendent. Okay. And they moved here when we were in the 7th grade. And of course, I knew her, but we never started dating until our junior year. And then after, when I went through basic ed, I got sent right over to Germany. I was there for 2 years. And when we came back, I got stationed in Fort Sheridan, Illinois. Well, in the meantime, she had went 1 year at Central because her dad said, "You got to go." Well, she wasn't happy about it, so she went to a commissary school in Traverse, and then she had a sister that lived in Edmore, Michigan. So she went down and lived with her and her husband. She had one daughter, and she had got a job there. And of course, I was stationed at Fort Sheridan. I'd come get a weekend off. I'd come to visit her. We finally decided, to heck with this. We got married in that June, and she, of course, she went to Chicago with me. And that way, when I had free time, there's a lot to see there. We spent time in the museum. We went up to Wisconsin. We just enjoyed the whole summer. And then, of course, then I got discharged in September. In fact, I got out 2 weeks. I got out early because some of the guys that went in, that went in a little bit. Well, I went in the middle of September when I got out, and some of them went in October. That's when the Berlin Wall was built, and they got extended 4 months. So I missed it by 2 weeks getting extended, and of course I was pretty happy about that. And we came back here, and you know, I liked it here. I was in Germany. I traveled quite a bit over there, and of course went to army bases in the States. But there was nothing like Bellaire. You know, Bellaire's a pretty little town. It's got the hills. I like that. I hate flat land. So we came back here. We said, well, we can make a living. We stay here. So I went around and started applying for jobs. Had to do something. And within a week and a half after I got back, I got interviewed at Lamina.
Oh, okay.
So I thought, well, heck, if I can start working here, because it was back then, it was hard to get in. They had a waiting list, you know, and they wouldn't hire just anybody. They were pretty particular. And I thought, well, I'll work here until I find something I like better. Well, I ended up staying there 40 years.
Wow. Wow. What did you do there?
I ran a finished grinder, sunless grinder.
So what does Lamina do?
Well, I've been retired for 20 years.
Okay.
And I never went back, and it's been sold so many times.
Yeah.
And it's different. But when I went in, they made wear plates, pins and bushings.
Okay.
And they did bronze plating. That's what really sold them. They bronze plated the idea on bushings, and that was their big money maker back then.
So there's a machine shop and...
Yeah, and it was, back then it was a good place to work.
So did you obviously had family?
Yeah, I have 3 older sisters and 6 younger brothers.
Wow.
Of course, they're spread out. My older sister's 7 years older, and then then the other one was a year younger, and then the third sister was 4 years older than me.
Okay.
And he lives in Keewaydin.
Oh, okay, so they all stayed kind of close.
And he works out of but of course then I have a brother in Texas and a brother in Tennessee, and of course a couple of them have passed away now.
Do you guys get together very often?
Well, we have a reunion coming up the middle of next month.
Excited?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
We've had them off and on every
Have
year,
you?
but it's been a while, because we're getting spread out now. And we used to have them when my mother was alive and lived out where we were raised. And we'd have a weekend one where we'd come and camp in the field and we'd get together, you know, the siblings and the nieces and nephews, and it was good. It was good.
So now so you just have the 3 girl grandchildren that are here?
No, 2 girls and a boy.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Grace has a brother, that's right.
She's a twin.
Grace is?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, see, the oldest one is Riley Kate,
Okay.
and she goes to she went to college in Traverse last year. She graduated in 20,
Okay.
but she wanted to go to Marquette, but her with the COVID coming up and her dad passed away, and
She just stayed home.
so
Well, close.
She yeah, but now she's all fired up because end of August she's going up to Marquette. She wants to go to Northern. She's pretty happy about that. She's all registered and
Ready to go?
Ready to go. Of course, Grace is going to be a senior,
Right.
and her brother Cole is going to be a senior too.
Oh boy, they do. They do. I notice Grace has a unique sense of humor too. A
Yeah,
unique way of seeing things.
yeah.
So she's a joy for us. So what kinds of things did you do, say when you were a teen? What kind of things did you do for fun, or what did kids do back then for entertainment?
Well, like the old saying goes, back then, you know, you didn't have TV. You went
Mhm.
outside, and well, growing up, in the wintertime especially, of course, we had chores to do. We had livestock to take care of and all that. Well, we come home from school in the wintertime. We lived on a hill, and we grabbed a runner sled. We spent a lot of time outside sliding and playing ball, just anything outside. But like sitting here in the library, now we read a lot. Our parents started reading to us when we were really young, and every Christmas, everyone would get a couple of books, and we've always, of course, back then, you know, with no TV, you sat around and you listen to the radio and pick up a book, and then you start reading. But another thing I tell my grandkids that kind of surprised, when we moved up here in '45, we lived 3 miles outside of town, and there was no electricity out there. It hadn't came in yet. So we had kerosene lamps, and that was quite, you know, back then we thought nothing of it. But thinking about it, I tell my grandkids about it, and they think, wow, where's your water? Well, we had a pump right outside the door. We pumped water, you know, and bathroom? Well, we had an outhouse. Of course, we lived here 1 year, and all of a sudden, like you say, REA came in, you know. They put so we only went 1 year without it, and then we got electricity and made a world of difference.
Did it? Did you remember that?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Of course, we had to have our house wired
Yeah?
because the houses weren't even wired for it then,
No.
and that made a big difference. And then talking about reading, on Saturday, late afternoon or whatever, my dad would always take us into town. And the library at that time was in the basement of the community hall.
Okay.
And we'd go in, you know, and everybody, the family would kind of scatter around, everybody would find a book. First time we went in, the first thing you had to do is you had to sign up for a library card, you know. Of course, one of your parents had to sign with it too. And so then they showed us the books, so we started looking for books. And I was 9 at the time. And of course, I've been reading all kinds of books. And my dad had a collection of Zane Grey books. And I'd read all of those, so I read over and started looking at the Zane Grey books they had. And I picked up one and took it back to check it out in the library, and says, "You're only 9, you shouldn't be reading that." So she took it, when I laid down, she put it aside, she says, "Come here, let me show you where." So she took me to a table where there were books for 9-year-olds, you know, more pictures than words. And I was ready to go home. I didn't say a word. I went to my dad and I said, I can't check anything out. I said, I don't want to read those books. And he says, "You just pick out the book you want and you give it to me and I'll check it out for you." So I went back and got a Zane Grey book and gave it to him. He checked it out. I took it home and read it. And every week when we did the same thing. I'll never forget that, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy sometimes to underestimate what kids are capable of doing, isn't it?
I understand what you're doing, you know, but I wasn't going to read that.
No.
You know.
No.
And we've always been readers, and of course, I don't know if you knew my wife or not, but she volunteered down here. She was here all the time, and she loves the library, and Grace likes that too. And it's our whole family are readers.
Okay.
You know, we pick up a book and read it.
Yep.
In fact, being home, living alone now, a lot of times I'll turn the Tiger ball game on turn it down low, pick up a book and read the book while I listen to the game.
Yep. There's something about that noise in the background, but you can still concentrate on the story, can't you?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So is Zane Grey one of your favorite authors, or do you have other favorites?
Well, it was back then.
Yeah.
But not anymore.
What do you like reading now?
I don't like anything that moves fast. My wife used to pick up books for me and bring them home.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a while the librarians would send some home, and then Grace did. Right after I retired, I had back surgery. I had 3 surgeries just like that, and I can't bend over very good, and my eyesight's not the best, so I can only look at the shelf at eye level. So
Okay.
you know,
Yep.
and so I don't really like coming and look around for books.
Well, I know Grace loves to pick books out for you.
Yeah.
So she finds some good ones, I think.
Yeah, she asked me one time, "Can you give me a list of authors?" Well, I tried, but I can I'll read a book and I can't remember the name of it, but as soon as I see it, I've read that book, And there are certain authors that I really like. There's some I don't like, but she's pretty good at picking them out.
She is, and she's always so proud of herself when she finds something that she thinks you're going to really like. That's she's always got her eye out for you. So what do you think is what has changed the most in the Bellaire area from, say, the time you were in the service and came back and now?
Well, when I went in the service at 18, and the one thing I noticed when I came back 3 years later was the town jumped ahead. Before I went in, there was a lot of little farms here, little farms there, and it was a tourist town. But the tourists came to places like Fisherman's Paradise, North Lakes, and different sorts. And they came into town, and then when I came back, then they started having cabins up here. They started homes on the lake, and then of course that's when Shaney was built, and it just started changing, started moving faster. Of course, while I was gone, Dingman's built a grocery store here in town, and of course that was going, and Davies was still going, but the little ones kind of got squeezed out, And it was a good thing. It was kind of more or less like bringing Bellaire up to date a little bit. And
so what do you think has been consistent since the time you came back from the service, or when you were 18? What do you think is consistent about this community? It's still there.
It's still there. It's more people. So, but if you've had an old friend, you still got an old friend. But there's so many more people, and I think that's one thing I really noticed. And even when I first came back, we'd get in the car and go for a little ride, and you could pick a 2-track road or a side road, and you could see wilderness, and my wife's mother in particular, when she came back here after her husband died, and she loved to go for a ride and see deer in the evening, but now you can't do that. You get on a 2-track road and you go a mile and a half, and there's a $500,000 house sitting there.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter where you go, you run into it.
Still a lot of deer, though. I drive from Boyne City to here.
Oh, too many deer.
I know.
Of course, my grandkids live up in Holiday Acres, and Grace has tried to has a little garden.
Okay.
It's just like a 4x8, and the deer are eating everything up. Rabbits and the deer. The deer are terrible.
They're cute when they're walking in the woods, but not so much when they're eating your tomatoes, are they?
Right.
So, what do you do for fun now? I mean, reading. You said you don't get around a lot, but
Right.
do you?
I read and spend time with grandkids, and of course I'm a sports fan. I like to follow the Lions. I like to follow the Tigers, and I like to follow, when I can, I like to follow the high school sports.
Oh, okay.
you know.
Now, did any of your, does Cole play sports? I know Grace really doesn't. Cole's not a sport guy?
You know, 23 hours out of the day,
That's what he's doing?
as he's all the time, basketball, football,
Oh, really?
baseball, and he knows you can talk to him about. Of course, his dad was that way, you know.
Yeah, well, his dad was a football coach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was, and of course, his dad was watching that or nothing at all.
Interesting. Interesting. Now, Bellaire is 8-man now, right?
Bellaire's, yeah. See, now I believe it was in the late '40s when they started it, and then of course I was at high school in the late '50s, and a couple of years after I graduated, they went to 8-man,
Okay.
and then they went to 11-man, and they played 11-man for quite a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Back when when Brock went through school, they were playing 11-man.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden, there's not that many,
And kids.
and so they had to drop down to 8-man.
So when they played 6-man, what were the positions that were played in offense, for example?
Well, you had three backs,
Okay.
and you had of course a center and
Right.
2 ends. 3 men
Wow.
on the line and 3 in the back.
Wow.
And you had to you couldn't carry the ball across the line without having an open lateral.
Really? So
So
a
you-
lot of passing then.
And then a lot of passing, and a lot of running, but you had to toss the ball back, and then the fullback would run it. But it had to be an open ladder so that people could see the ball.
Okay.
And you had to make 15 yards for a first down. instead of
Really?
10. But the field was only 80 yards long,
Okay.
you know.
Wow.
But it was fun. It was a fast game,
Yeah, it would be.
and
It would be. And then what did defense positions? Were they just all?
well, pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
You had different defense. Like when I was in school, the coach was pretty much running a 2-man on the line, 3 linebackers, and then a safety.
They did have safety, okay,
Yeah.
but nobody on the other sides.
Well, yeah, they 2 on the line, and then they put three linebackers. They had 2
Oh,
on the
okay,
line, 1 in the
okay.
middle, and then 1 safety back.
Wow.
Yeah, but it would vary, you know, depending
Yeah.
on the coach. But it worked out.
Sure.
You still only had 6 guys across from you. So.
Yeah, so that's true. I mean, yeah, it was even.
And it was a better game to watch.
I bet. A lot
Yeah.
faster.
And that's why when Bellaire went to 8-man here, a lot of people were upset about that. That's not football. Well, they didn't know what they were talking about. And some of us had seen 6-man, so we knew. And 8-man's a good game. 8-man is as hard as 11-man, and it's a fast game. It's a better spectator game, I think.
Hmm.
But
So, in closing, is there anything about Bellaire that you just right now just really are happy that that you like? What's the thing you like best about Bellaire right now?
it's location. You know, it's on
Lakes.
by the lakes. It's in the hills. I love coming down the hill. I hate living in a flat land, and the roads are up here. You can't say you go straight this way. It's here and that way, and I just like the location. You know, the trees. I like the trees coming on in the spring, and then turning in the fall,
Oh,
and then I even enjoy the snow.
good.
You know, and of course, the winters have really changed. That's one thing I have really changed
Really?
compared to what they used to be. Whether it's climate change or warming or
More
what.
snow back then?
Oh, definitely. And colder weather. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, this past winter was hardly a winter.
I know it. When we were in grade school, of course, we were in the old high school,
Right,
the
okay.
old building, and on some winter days, the furnace couldn't keep up with it, so the teacher would always have us move away from the windows, the inside, because it was warmer. Because
You get cold.
we'd go to school, the wind was blowing, and it was quite often it was 10, 15 below zero when you got
Well,
to
and you're up
school.
on a hill, really,
You know,
at that point.
yeah, and because it isn't that way now. This last couple of years, we were very still below zero.
I know. Yeah, we've lived here 40 years, and yeah, it's changed even
It's
just
really
in 40
changed.
years. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it has. And the lake effect now is happening. We live on Lake Charlevoix, and lake effect is not nearly as much as it used to be.
No, of course, back in the 40s and 50s, you didn't know what lake effect was.
You just knew it was a lot of snow.
Yeah, it just was snow.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. It was great stories. Great
Well, I hope
stories.
there's something you can use.
It's absolutely something we can use, and we're really for this project, we're just really looking for as many people that we can talk to, because when you put little bits, like you're talking about six-man football and some of that, you put all those little bits together, they're things people don't know about.
Right.
And I think one of my greatest regrets, her grandmother lived till she was 101. She had stories, and none of us ever recorded them.
See, I know what you're saying. I think sometimes I bore my kids, my grandkids, because I'm trying to tell them some of the old things that happened, because there was so much that I didn't learn from my grandparents and my parents. Like my dad was 29 years old when he got married.
Oh, okay.
But
Which was old then.
back then, yeah. But so he had quite a life before he ever got
Right.
married. But he lived in Nebraska and all over, and he came to Michigan to
Yep.
get work, and of course my mother's parents, her dad come from England into Canada, and then came from Canada in Detroit, and that's how he met my grandmother. And there's so many things that I wish I could go back and talk to him about.
That's, and we remember Grandma telling stories, but we just loved listening to her, and then later realized after she had gone, we're not going to remember. I mean, she was 101 and she still had a sharp mind.
That's great.
She would still tell us things and didn't repeat stories, which even I repeat stories to my own kids. Did I tell you about this?
I do that too.
Well, thank you so much, Danney, and it was good to meet you.
Okay.
It was very good to meet you. Again, we are thrilled with Gracie. Well, she volunteered here almost 600 hours before we hired her. She would come in every week like clockwork.
She takes that really seriously.
She does. So when I had talked to the board and said, I want to hire a high school student and I want Grace, and they were fine with it because they knew. I said, I'm not going to have to train her to do anything.
Sometimes, one time in particular, I don't remember what it was, she was a little disappointed when she came home. And because I always said to her, well, how'd your day go at the library, Because she always calls me.
Right.
And, well, I didn't really get to do too much. There wasn't an awful lot to do.
Oh, no.
And she likes
having stuff to do.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, I started here as the director about 3 weeks before COVID shut us down. So, so I didn't really get to meet Grace until this past fall, because that's the first she could start coming back and helping and stuff. But we have jobs now for Grace. When Grace comes in, there are things that she can do, projects, and I like to kind of mix it up a little because it can get really boring to just sit here and organize books all day.
Yes.
But she's been great. And,
yep. She really does enjoy it. There's no question about that.
Well, in this area, it was much more closed in, and so I had her help me pick the table and the chairs and this stuff so the teenagers can hang out here, which is a little bit.
Yeah, she made something about making an area or something.
Yep. And so that table you can plug into, they can use their laptops and stuff, and she helped me do this.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I know she really likes it.
Well, we like her. We'll miss her when she goes away to college, but.
That's another story.
Yeah, it's another right. Yeah, I know she's doing an internship of some kind of Thursday.
Yeah. She studied